Hello, my name is Peter Wilde, and today I'd like to talk to you about one of the exercises from grade 8. This is number 2B, and it's entitled Interlace. Now, the interlace is very much a reference to the interweaving of contrapuntal lines, and from that point of view, it very much harks back to the Baroque era, where a lot of the music was focused on voice parts and polyphony. I'm going to play it all the way through, and hopefully you can hear the three layers of sound. Essentially, we have a bass line, which is not quite as active as the upper parts, but does have quite a bit of its own melodic interest. And the right hand is responsible for the two upper voices, and these move together in a lovely intimate duet, I would say. So this is a very contained piece. It's full of lots of lovely detail, and you can hear that the two upper parts, as I said previously, are involved in the presentation of a very intimate duet idiom. And quite often you will hear one part being answered by the other. It strikes me that this would sound rather lovely if we heard a pair of oboes playing, and that would really hark back to the Baroque era. Notice that very often there's a sustained note in one part whilst the other part has its little say underneath or over the top. If I could just play the first two bars again, that would give you a good example of that. So the first part begins, the upper part begins. So we could hear how the two levels move independently, and then they come together just at the end of the phrase, which provides an opportunity for you to provide a tapering of sound and a sense of closed end. The following three bars are also lovely. They move on in a similar vein, but they're much more sequential. So very, very much like a dialogue here. Now, I'm managing to make, hopefully, all of this legato. It does say specifically legato just after the MP in the first bar, and that's very, very important because it's part of the technique of presenting the exercise. And in order to achieve the legato throughout, you would need to look carefully at the finger patterns. Always look at the suggestions in the book first. They are good suggestions. Try and work out why perhaps in some cases they're not the most expected finger patterns. Try to understand why those finger patterns have been suggested. We're not actually maintaining that they will suit everybody. If you do decide to change the fingering, that does not matter, provided that the musical outcome is exactly the same. Now, whatever you decide with fingering, the main thing is to get that established early on in the learning process, and most importantly, to stick with that. It's when we have, let's say, fingering which does not have a strong basis and is not assured, that slips will occur later on in the performance. So try to build on the foundations. Good fingering practice will give you good, strong technique. A few little places to watch out for. In the second half of the first bar, this is very much a positioning thing. The upper part has finished on a C with the fifth finger. That becomes sustained. The lower part then plays. The only way I can do this is if my hand is pushed further up the key so that my thumb can manage to be positioned on the E flat and comfortably. So that means when I start the piece, I wouldn't want to be playing perhaps too far away and then find I have to twist my hand. So ideally, we would have the hand position slightly higher at the beginning. When I played the C on top, my thumb already can reach the E flat, and that means I can play with legato and with a controlled tone. I make quite a big thing about this because so often people haven't thought ahead about fingering and positioning, and that shows, it comes out in the tone itself. So to give you an example of a bad performance, now I had to lurch forward, and of course that meant that the note bulges, the sound bulges, and that disturbs the flow of the phrase. So that's quite a common occurrence. Otherwise it just doesn't happen at all because they haven't managed to get to the position in time. There's some very interesting fingering on the thirds at the end of the second bar. It is not the most expected fingering, but that's sound fingering for passage work of that nature, where we're playing in thirds and we're trying to keep the thumb here away from the black note. It's a much more comfortable position to be able to cross with the second finger. In the first bar we had no option, we had to push the thumb up to E flat, but here we can manage that without moving the fingers across the keyboard. So let's listen to the whole exercise again. Listen to the way it's phrased, try to be aware of the structure of the piece, and try to feel where the music might breathe. Baroque music often has its origins in vocal music. Let's think vocally as well. A serious student will really benefit from looking at those finger patterns and trying to be disciplined in achieving the legato purely with their fingers. I think it's a lovely piece of music and very, very satisfying to play indeed. Thank you very much.